My name is Hannah Collins. I was 17, just a girl who thought her biggest problem was curfew arguments with her mom and whether I could get into Texas A&M. Spring break felt like freedom, the first time my best friend Maya and I could stretch our wings without our parents' shadows trailing us. We had planned it for months, saving every crumpled dollar bill from shifts at the grocery store, marking the days on a calendar like it was Christmas. We loaded the car with candy, playlists, and dreams bigger than our small Texas town. The road stretched wide and empty, and the desert night pressed in like a heavy blanket. We found ourselves laughing too loud in that beat-up sedan, our voices straining to keep up with the radio. But after 10 hours of driving, the exhaustion caught up. Our eyes burned, our stomachs ached with hunger. And that's when we saw the flicker of neon, a diner glowing faintly against the endless dark. It didn't look special, just another greasy spoon, the kind of place you'd drive past without blinking in daylight. But when you're bone tired, any place with food and lights feels like an oasis. The sign read, Cactus Grill. Inside, the booth stuck to your skin, the burgers were overcooked, and the fries were limp. But we laughed anyway, choking down bites between inside jokes, feeling proud that we'd made it this far on our own. I even texted my dad. Almost there. Love you. I had no idea it would be the last message I'd ever send him. When we stepped outside, the desert air cut sharp and cold. A single buzzing fluorescent lamp spilled uneven light across the parking lot, leaving long, jittering shadows. That's when he appeared. Thin. Nervous. Eyes darting. He stepped out from behind a truck like he'd been waiting. His words tumbled out in broken fragments about voices and messages. Maya squeezed my arm, her nails biting into my skin. I felt my body go rigid, a fear so cold it seemed to freeze the air itself. You think fear will be loud like in movies, but the truth is, it's silent. Heavy. It presses down on your chest and makes every second stretch. I tried to move, but my feet felt nailed to the pavement. Maya whispered, "Just give him your purse," but his gaze wasn't on money. It was locked on me. The world snapped forward in a blur. He lunged, a flash of motion, a burning strike to my side. At first it was just pressure, like being punched by someone stronger than me. Then warmth spread across my ribs, sticky and fast. I looked down and saw the dark bloom spreading. My body swayed, the ground rising to meet me. Maya's scream tore across the lot, echoing off the desert emptiness. Then came the flash of headlights, the screech of tires. Police, a shout. The man turned, a glint of metal in his hand. Two deafening cracks split the night. His body jerked and crumpled, folding to the ground. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over, safe. But my legs gave way, and I collapsed onto the cold pavement. Maya hovered over me, her hands pressing down on the wound, sobbing words I couldn't process. The sirens, the lights, the officer's gun still raised, it all blurred. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy. And then, something impossible happened. The sound stopped. Not faded, stopped. Sirens froze mid-wail. Maya's mouth hung open in a silent scream, her hands suspended in midair. Even the police officer looked carved from stone, caught in motion. The killer's body, mid-fall, lingered, like a grotesque statue. Time itself had surrendered. And me, I was no longer afraid. No more pain, no more weight. Just a strange awareness, as though I'd been gently unhooked from the world. I floated above my body, watching the scene below like a photograph of someone else's tragedy. The broken burger wrappers on the diner table, the cracked pavement, the stars, everything suddenly looked so small, so distant. There was a tug then, not harsh but steady, like an unseen hand drawing me upward. The world below shrank to a pinprick. My last human thought was fleeting and strange. I forgot to call Dad back. Then the darkness of the desert melted away into light. The light was not like the fluorescent bulb buzzing above the parking lot, or even like the sun I had known all my life. It was alive. I was being pulled through what looked like a tunnel, but it wasn't a tunnel of stone or metal. It was made of color, soft swirls that glowed like the inside of a pearl. Every hue melted into the next, yet it wasn't bright in a way that hurt the eyes. It was bright in a way that felt like breathing for the first time. The fear I had known just moments before, the heavy dread that paralyzed my body, evaporated. What replaced it was peace so deep it felt like it seeped into every memory I had ever carried. I felt unhooked from pain, unchained from the heavy expectations of being human. It was like floating, like being carried. Every inch of me whispered, home. As I moved further in, I became aware of a presence waiting at the end. Not just waiting, drawing me in. There was no question in my mind of who it was, though he looked nothing like the stained glass pictures in churches. No long hair, no sandals, no painted halo. He was light, pure, and living, like standing in front of the sun, if the sun itself were made entirely of love. And yet I could look at him. More than that, I could feel him. The air around him vibrated with a low, steady hum that reached inside my chest and silenced every doubt, every fear, every worry. The sound wasn't noise, it was truth. It said, "You are safe, you are loved, you belong." I didn't hear his voice the way I would hear my mother calling me for dinner. His words slipped straight into my being like memories I had always known but somehow forgotten. When he looked at me, I felt stripped bare every mistake, every secret thought, every hidden fear. But there was no judgment, no anger, just knowing. A love so complete that I felt my soul would dissolve if it held me any tighter. I began to weep, not out of sadness but from the pure relief of finally being free. All the little weights of life, the SAT scores, the teenage insecurities, the silent jealousies, fell off like chains being cut. I realized then how heavy it had been to live with them, how often I walked around carrying invisible stones in my heart. In his presence, those stones turned to dust. The light itself wrapped me like a warm blanket. It didn't just shine on me. It soaked through me, filling every crack in my being. I thought, this is what I was made for. This is where I belong. I never want to leave this place. Then he began to show me things not with words, but with visions. The world faded, and I was standing once more in that same parking lot. Only this time I wasn't looking at myself. I was looking at the man who had killed me. His face was not twisted in rage, not defined by the violence of that moment. Instead, Jesus allowed me to see him as he had been a child hiding under a bed while his parents screamed at each other. I saw his small hands covering his ears. I felt the ache of his loneliness. And the tunnel of pearl light around me seemed to tremble with a truth I couldn't deny. Evil does not begin in the act. It begins in the heart, when mercy is rejected. I gasped. Even in heaven, with tears made of light, my chest tightened with sorrow. Because what Jesus was showing me was more than one man's story. It was the seed of every hatred, every bitterness. And I began to realize that he wasn't only showing me him, he was preparing to show me the world. The peace I had felt only moments ago still held me, but now it carried a deeper weight. Awe mixed with trembling, as if heaven itself was opening a window, and I was about to see beyond the veil of my short life into the truth of eternity. The vision of the man who killed me unfolded like a movie reel spun by unseen hands, and I could not look away. Jesus did not speak, he didn't need to. His presence pressed the truth directly into my spirit. I watched the stranger who had ended my earthly life, not as a monster but as a boy. He was small, crouched under a chipped wooden bed, his parents' shouts crashing down like thunder above him. The boy's heart raced with fear, and I could feel his fear as if it were my own. His world was unstable, his foundation cracked before he had even learned to spell his own name, and I knew in that moment, seeds of bitterness had already been planted. I saw him at school, shoulders hunched, books clutched tight to his chest as other kids sneered and pushed. He wore rejection like a second skin. The whispers started there, faint at first, shadowy shapes curling around him, hissing lies too subtle for anyone else to hear. You're worthless. No one cares. They all hate you. Each time he listened, I saw a dark root grow deeper in his heart. The years flickered by. I watched him steal from a corner store, the thrill of wrong choice covering up the ache of being unseen. I saw him lie, shrug, fight, pull away from the small lights reaching toward him. A teacher praising him for being clever, a neighbor handing him a hot meal, his own mother, worn and desperate, whispering prayers at her bedside. Those prayers, oh, I could see them. They weren't just words floating into the air. They were golden threads, stretching across time and space, weaving toward him like cords of light. Each one shimmered with love and hope, pulling him toward mercy. But I saw what he did. With every hardened decision, every rejection of kindness, he cut those threads one by one. My heart ached watching them snap, delicate strands falling away into nothing. And the shadows never let go. They multiplied. They hissed louder. They told him anger was power, that revenge was strength, that bitterness was survival, and he believed them. Not because he was created for darkness, but because he rejected the rescue. Over and over again, the hand of God reached toward him through people, through moments, through mercy, and over again, he turned away. My tears fell in heaven. They weren't heavy or hot like earth tears. They were pure sorrow. I realized I wasn't crying just for him. I was crying for the world. Because what I was seeing in him, the loneliness, the lies, the rejection of love, was not just his story. It was the story of millions. I turned toward Jesus, my soul aching with the question I couldn't put into words. How could someone like this, who had caused so much pain, still be shown so much mercy? Why had heaven reached for him again and again? And though he did not speak, his gaze gave me the answer. Every single human heart is pursued. Every soul is given chances, golden threads woven through the mess of life. God does not abandon. We do. The vision pressed on. I saw him just weeks before the night he found us in that dusty parking lot, alone in a dim apartment, flipping through TV channels. His face blank, his spirit weary. For a single minute he paused on a preacher speaking about mercy, about forgiveness. The light of those words touched him. I could see it, a spark glowing faintly in his chest. But he picked up the remote. With one motion, he changed the channel. The spark dimmed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab that moment and hold it open, to shake him and say, "Choose it, please, choose it." But I couldn't. He had chosen. Every small decision, every cut of the golden thread, had led him here. Compassion and grief warred in me. On earth, I might have only seen the violence, the horror of his final act. But here, in the presence of Jesus, I saw the whole picture. He had been offered mercy more times than I could count. He had been pursued by love again and again, and each time, he said no. It hit me like a stone dropped into still water. No one simply stumbles into darkness. They walk there one choice at a time. And I understood then what Jesus was showing me. My story wasn't about the way I died, it was about the way choices shape eternity. And the warning wasn't just for me, or for him. It was for everyone who still breathes. The vision shifted suddenly. One moment I was watching the boy, turned man, make those small, devastating choices, and the next, I was standing with him in the same place of light, where I had first seen Jesus. Only this time the light wasn't peace. For him, it was unbearable. He stood there bewildered, his eyes darting, his soul stripped bare before the presence of the King. The radiance that had soothed me and held me together pressed against him like fire. He staggered back, arms raised to shield himself. It wasn't that Jesus was hurting him, the light itself was truth, and the truth exposed every shadow clinging to him. The lies he had chosen for years screamed under that brightness. I watched his face twist in agony. His spirit recoiled, like oil pulling away from water. The whispers that had haunted him for so long slithered into view, no longer hiding. They surrounded him, grotesque and grinning, not as friends but as jailers. Their arms coiled like chains, their voices no longer persuasive but commanding. He had listened to them on earth. Now he belonged to them. He wasn't pushed away, he wasn't condemned by Jesus. He fled. He couldn't bear the light, couldn't bear the purity of love. Every step backward was his own choice, every scream was his refusal of mercy. And then, with a shudder, he turned from the brilliance and hurled himself into the shadows that opened behind him. The darkness swallowed him, not like a pit with flames, but like a silence so total it crushed the soul. It wasn't fire that terrified me, it was absence. The absence of God, of light, of love. That void was hell. I felt myself trembling, even in the safety of heaven's presence. My tears returned, and I looked to Jesus for some kind of answer, some declaration of justice or judgment. But what I heard instead shattered me. Jesus wept. It wasn't a loud wail or a thunderous cry. It was the sound of deep sorrow, the kind that shakes mountains with its silence. His tears glistened like liquid light, each one carrying a weight of grief beyond what human hearts can hold. I realized then, this was not the grief of a judge angry at rebellion. This was the grief of a father losing a child. The man was not created for darkness. He had been made for glory, for joy, for love. Yet he had chosen chains, and heaven mourned. The hum of eternity seemed to dim with that sorrow. I felt it in my core, and it broke something inside me. The King of Kings, the one whose voice held galaxies together, was crying not for me, not even for the act that had ended my life, but for the soul that had turned away from him. I wanted to fall at his feet, to ask how it was possible to carry such grief and still love. But before I could form the thought, his gaze met mine. It was heavy, eternal, filled with a sadness that still carried hope. He pressed words into me without moving. His lips, "Evil does not begin in the act. It begins in the heart, when mercy is rejected." The weight of those words sank deep. I saw the boy, the man, the shadowy whispers, the cut golden threads, and I understood. Hell is not a place where God throws us. It is the place we run to when we reject him. The torment is not his punishment, but the natural consequence of shutting out the light. I shook under the realization. It wasn't just his story, it was the warning for every person alive. Bitterness, pride, unforgiveness. Those small hidden seeds become roots, and if left untended, they strangle the soul until the light feels unbearable. The silence stretched, heavy with the king's tears, and though I didn't fully understand, I knew this was not the end of what he wanted to show me. My own grief was already overflowing, yet his eyes told me there was more, that this was not just about one man, but about a nation, about a world drifting the same way. The vision dimmed, like curtains being drawn, and I braced myself for what would come next. The curtains of vision opened again, and I was no longer looking at the man who had killed me. Instead, Jesus turned my gaze outward, across the expanse of a nation I knew so well. America lay stretched beneath us like a patchwork quilt: suburbs, cities, farms, highways, all alive with hidden movements. Yet what I saw wasn't what the eye sees from an airplane window. It was the condition of hearts. I saw living rooms glowing with the light of screens, families sitting side by side but not together, their faces hard, their eyes narrowed, their hearts burning with anger. I could hear words they weren't even speaking aloud, words of contempt, of hatred, of division. It was like each heart was sending out sparks of bitterness, filling the air like wildfire. Everywhere I looked, the same pattern emerged. Neighbors despising neighbors over politics, friends ending friendships over differences, strangers tearing each other apart over words on a screen. The whispers were there too, the same shadowy shapes I had seen wrapping themselves around my killer. They slithered into homes, curled over shoulders, and hissed lies. "You are right. They are wrong. They are evil. Destroy them. Hate them." And the people listened. They welcomed those whispers as if they were truth. Their anger didn't feel like sin to them. It felt righteous, justified. But Jesus let me see it for what it was: chains. Rusted, heavy chains binding their souls to the same darkness. I felt panic rise in me, like standing on a cliff watching thousands march toward the edge, blind to the drop before them. The same poison that consumed my killer was seeping into millions of hearts. It wasn't just murder or theft or violence, it was the slow drip of bitterness, the daily choice to refuse mercy. The vision zoomed closer. I saw a man scrolling through his phone, face twisted in disgust as he read the words of someone who disagreed with him. Instead of praying, instead of seeking understanding, he muttered curses under his breath. In the spiritual realm, I saw it grow, darkness tightening around him like a noose. I saw a woman sitting alone, replaying the hurtful words her sister had spoken years ago. Her face hardened with each memory. In the unseen world, a seed of bitterness sprouted like black vines, wrapping tighter around her heart. I saw children soaking in the anger of their parents, learning to despise before they had even learned to love. Their innocence cracked as the whispers slithered closer, whispering division into their tender ears. And then I saw the whole nation. A haze of shadow hovered over cities and towns, not physical but spiritual, born from the hatred people carried like a badge of honor. It pulsed with energy, like a storm cloud ready to break. Jesus' voice poured into me, heavy and sorrowful. They think their anger is righteous, but it is poison. It is the same chain that dragged him into darkness. I trembled, because I knew he was right. I could feel it. The poison was subtle, seductive. It told people they were justified, that their hatred was holy, that their bitterness was strength. But in reality, it was corrosion, eating away at souls, preparing them for the same fate I had witnessed just moments before. Urgency burned through me. I wanted to shout, to cry out, to beg every person watching to let go before it was too late. I saw so clearly what I had never seen on earth. Bitterness is not just a feeling, it is a path. And every step down that path makes it harder to turn back. I turned to Jesus, my soul pleading for some remedy, some hope. His eyes met mine, full of love and sorrow. He did not despair, but his gaze carried urgency, as though the time to choose mercy was running short. He let me feel his grief, not just for individuals, but for a people, a country, a world slipping deeper into the same darkness that had claimed my killer. And in that moment, I knew. The vision was not given to terrify me. It was given so that I would carry the warning back. The weight of it pressed into my being. A mission was forming, though I still didn't know what it would cost me. My heart beat with both dread and determination. Because once you've seen what bitterness becomes, you cannot stay silent. The weight of what I had seen pressed against me like a tide, and my first instinct was to cling to the light, to beg Jesus not to send me anywhere else. This was home. This was peace. The air here was alive with love, every shimmer of light humming with the assurance that nothing could harm me. Why would anyone ever leave? But he turned his gaze back to me, steady and full of purpose. His love wrapped me like a cloak, and with that love came words that entered my soul like a command. Your story is not finished. The thought crushed me. I shook my head, not with lips or breath, but with my whole spirit. Please, don't send me back. Don't send me back to the pain, to the fear, to the noise of that world. I was only 17, tired of the weight of trying to prove myself, tired of carrying expectations like stones in a backpack. Here in this place, all of that had fallen away. I never wanted to pick it up again. But his love was firm. It is not for you. It is for them. I felt myself collapse in surrender, as though every ounce of resistance drained out of me. His words echoed through every part of me, not harsh, not demanding, but true. My story was not my own. It was a message written on my life, a seed planted to grow in the lives of others. He showed me what home really means. Heaven is not just a reward for living a good life, it is where we were made to belong. The warmth, the peace, the feeling of being fully seen and fully loved, this is what the soul has been aching for all along. That's why the pull toward him was irresistible. That's why leaving felt like the hardest thing I would ever do. I reached out toward him, desperate. His form of living light shimmered, and I felt the embrace again. It was not like human arms, it was everywhere at once, pressing into my soul with safety and affection. For one breathless moment, I felt myself held in the very heartbeat of creation, and then, just as gently, he released me. Go and tell them to guard their hearts. Tell them to choose forgiveness before it is too late. Teach them to love. The words vibrated through me like thunder rolling across the sky. They were not just instructions, they were a charge, a mantle, a mission. My spirit knew that if I obeyed, it would cost me everything. My comfort, my silence, my illusions of safety. But I also knew I could never refuse. His love compelled me. I pleaded one last time, whispering from the core of who I was. Please, let me stay. Just let me stay with you. And again, that gentle firmness washed over me. I am with you always, even there. The moment he said it, I understood. Heaven wasn't something far away that I had to wait to find again. His presence, his love, his light, they would be with me even in the broken world. Not in the same fullness, but enough to carry me, enough to keep me. And so, with a final wave of his love pressing against me like the warmest tide, I felt myself begin to fall. The light receded. The music of his presence dimmed. The peace ripped away like a blanket pulled from a child. Cold rushed in. Weight crushed back down on my body. The sensation of home faded into the sharp edges of earth. I gasped, choking on air like it was too heavy to breathe. My chest burned, my throat scraped, my sides seared with fire. A bright hospital light stabbed my eyes. The hum of heaven was gone, replaced by frantic beeping and shouting voices. The mission had begun. The first breath back in my body felt like drowning, cold, heavy, jagged. A tube down my throat choked me as machines beeped wildly around me. For a second, I didn't know where I was, or even who I was. Then the weight of flesh settled like lead, and I realized I had left the light. I had come back. Nurses swarmed, voices frantic. Someone cried out, "She's breathing on her own." Their faces swam in and out of focus as tears stung my eyes. They thought my heart had stopped for good. They had almost called my time of death. But then, without explanation, life had surged through me again. 11 minutes gone. 11 minutes with no heartbeat, no brain activity, no breath. And yet, here I was, awake, alive, unbroken. The surgeon later told my parents it was impossible. The damage should have been too severe. My brain should have been ruined. Instead, I was perfectly fine. Not a single impairment. No medical reason. Just mystery. But I knew better. It wasn't medicine that brought me back. It was mercy. As the days passed, I carried inside me not just the memory of what I had seen, but the weight of what I had been commanded to tell. It burned in me like fire. At night, when the hospital grew quiet and machines hummed softly, I would close my eyes and feel his words again. Guard your hearts. Choose forgiveness. Teach them to love. I looked at the faces around me, my parents, worn with grief, Maya, still shaken and tearful, and I saw how easy it would be to cling to anger, to curse the man who had taken everything from me. But I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. I had watched him cut every golden thread of grace. I had watched him flee from heaven into darkness. I had seen Jesus weep for him. That vision burned away any illusion that hate could heal. Bitterness doesn't punish our enemies, it poisons us. It turns our souls into the very soil where darkness grows. And I understood then, if I wanted to carry his message, it had to begin with me. I had to forgive. So I whispered forgiveness into the silence, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. I laid down the anger that would have chained me. I asked Jesus to help me guard my heart, and in return, I felt his peace slip through the cracks of my pain. I tell you this now because the warning was not just for me. It is for you. Every day, you are offered chances, small, ordinary moments to release bitterness and choose mercy, to pray for the one who hurt you, to love the person right in front of you, to stop feeding the anger that feels so good but chains you so tightly. Don't reject those chances. Don't cut the golden threads that God is weaving into your life, because I have seen where that path leads, and it is terrifyingly real. Heaven is real. Hell is real. And the choice is not made once at the end of life. It is made daily, in the quiet, in the unseen corners of your heart. The world is loud with hatred. The whispers are everywhere, telling you to despise, to divide, to destroy. But you don't have to listen. You can choose love. You can choose mercy. You can choose Jesus. That's why I am here. That's why he sent me back. Not to scare you, not to impress you with a miracle, but to plead with you. Guard your heart. Don't drink the poison of bitterness. Don't let anger masquerade as righteousness. Choose forgiveness, because forgiveness is freedom. Choose love, because love is life. And now, as my voice quiets, I want you to let the weight of these words sink in. Imagine yourself sitting at the edge of eternity, seeing both paths laid out before you. One path lined with anger, with unforgiveness, with shadows that whisper lies until they own you. The other path, lit by threads of mercy, leading you straight into the embrace of the one who made you. This is not just my story. It is your warning, your invitation. Jesus did not ask me to tell you which church to attend or which banner to wave. He asked me to remind you of the simple, costly truth. Bitterness will destroy you, but forgiveness will save you. Every single day, the choice lies in your hands. Will you cling to anger, or will you let it go? Will you reject mercy, or will you receive it? The world is fragile, trembling on the edge of storms and shadows, but you are not powerless. You can change the atmosphere of your home, your family, your community, simply by choosing love. It begins inside, in the hidden chambers of your heart. Guard it, protect it, offer it back to God, and watch as light pushes back the darkness. So I leave you with this gentle whisper. If these words resonate with you, leave an amen in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share it with at least 3 friends or family members right now. Now is your time to make a difference. Spreading this message is not only an act of love, but also a mission that Jesus himself has entrusted to you.